to use the resources, knowledge, and capital that is already out there and needs to be leveraged. Last year, we opened our first regional office in Beijing with Premier Li Keqiang of China. We at the GCA are humbled to be the lead international partner supporting China in developing and implementing its 2035 National Adaptation Plan. Next week, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon will launch the GCA Africa, hosted by the African Development Bank in close collaboration with a broad range of partners. Together, our global network of offices and partners will work to share solutions and adaptation knowledge from the local to the global level. Solutions already out there. We know what to do. We must scale the solutions that already exist and accelerate the discovery of new ones. During the same visit to Bangladesh last year, as I was leaving, I saw a sign on an aircraft hangar at the old airport. It read, "Prepare and prevent, repair and repent." At the GCA, we have our own version, delay and pay or plan and prosper. It sounds like a choice, but morally and economically, there really is no choice. Climate change is making our world less equal. It is reversing decades of progress in the fight against poverty. And as the global youth climate movement has said loud and clear over and over again, it is also introducing profound inequalities. This is a challenge we have to meet in this crucial year, leading into the Climate Adaptation Summit, hosted by Prime Minister Rutte, and COP26, hosted by the United Kingdom next year. I'm very grateful for the contributions we will hear from honorable ministers from across South Asia, who recognize that adaptations, if done well, are some of the most cost-effective and proactive investments a country can make. We hope with the combined expertise and resources of the many partners involved in the GCA, we can find urgent and cost-effective ways to help and support communities across South Asia, particularly at the local level. We must transform systems to give everyone a chance of living and living well in a warming planet. It is in our power to do so, and so we must. So again, thank you, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, for your leadership on this agenda and your generosity in hosting us here in Dhaka for the benefit of the region and the world at large. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick, for his speech. Ladies and gentlemen, may we now request His Excellency Mr. Leonpo Yeshe Penjor, Minister for the Ministry of Agriculture and Forest of Bhutan, to kindly deliver his speech.
Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, former Secretary General of the United Nations, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. At the outset, let me extend our warm felicitations to the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh for hosting the regional office of the Global Center on Adaptation for South Asia in Dhaka. This event is an indication of the global recognition of the achievements of Bangladesh on the environmental front. South Asia, home to 1/4 of the world's population, suffers the most from natural disasters and climate-induced calamities. Millions of people are exposed to droughts, heat waves, floods and tropical cyclones. Irreversible biodiversity loss, melting of glaciers and sea level rise are some of the other daunting challenges the region needs to tackle. Bhutan, under the far-sighted leadership of our monarchs, has maintained a pristine environment and is committed to remain carbon neutral. This is despite the challenges faced by us, given that our economy is highly dependent on climate-sensitive sectors such as agriculture and hydropower. Further, Bhutan also faces increasing threats from climate hazard and extreme events such as flash floods, glacial lake outburst floods, windstorms, forest fires, and landslides. There is an urgent need to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change and build resilience. Science is quite clear that without urgent action, the impacts will be far greater. It is evident that the climate crisis, coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic, will push millions of vulnerable people further into poverty. Therefore, regional and international cooperation and solidarity are important to tackle the two global crises of climate change and the COVID-19 pandemic. The establishment of the Regional Office of Global Center on Adaptation in Dhaka will address the challenges faced by vulnerable countries, such as lack of up-to-date and locally relevant information, lack of technology and finance, institutions, and overall capacity. With the Center's expertise and the blessings of the Global Commission, I am hopeful that works to mitigate these barriers will begin in earnest, and the region will be able to expedite and scale up climate actions on the ground. To conclude, let me once again congratulate the government of Bangladesh for the launch of the Global Center on Adaptation in Dhaka and extend our best wishes for the success of the center. We look forward to working together to maximize benefits emanating from the GCA, and the Royal Government of Bhutan stands ready to extend our cooperation to the center. Please stay safe. Thank you, and Tashtile.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from Bhutan. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, now we would like to request His Excellency Mr. Babul Supriyo, State Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change of India, to kindly deliver his speech.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I'm extremely happy and honored, and would like to congratulate Bangladesh for virtually launching the Global Center of Adaptation, South Asia Regional Office, which would be in Dhaka on the 8th of September 2020. And I'm very, very excited to understand that this is a joint venture between the government of Bangladesh and the Global Center of Adaptation. We stay in an area which is called the South Asian region, and it is highly vulnerable to climate change impacts that can threaten food and water security, and also definitely the livelihood of people. And in this particular region, we almost have 1/3 of the entire world's population residing. This is borne out in several studies and reports, most notably in the 5th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which highlights that in the future, the impacts of climate change will increase the flooding of settlements and infrastructure, food and water shortages, and heat waves in South Asia. It's really a very alarming situation, but I am very sure that with such new endeavors, we are going to be successfully countering and handling the challenges that this new COVID pandemic, this disastrous situation that the world has been, world is having to face at this point of time. The initiative of instituting the Global Center on Adaptation, which we are calling GCA, South Asia Partnership Forum, is timely as it provides an excellent opportunity to share experiences and build collective capacity to tackle the challenge of climate change. This is also aligned with the Paris Agreement that sets a global goal of enhancing adaptive capacity, strengthening resilience, and reducing vulnerability to climate change, which we know are part of the Article 7.1 of the agreement. Over the years, India has been leading from the front in tackling global climate change issues, and it would continue doing so in the future as well. I can assure you of that under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji. We are very, very serious. We are driven to do everything that's possible to make the world a better place in terms of how we combat climate change, how we reduce pollution, how we can ensure that the planet not only gets cleaner as days pass by, but we also leave a very healthy planet for the future generation. A slew of measures for adapting to the climate change impacts and upliftment of poor and vulnerable sections of society are being implemented domestically in India. A series of measures have been undertaken by the government to drive domestic action on climate change, such as implementation of the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which we are calling NAPCC, and State Action Plans on Climate Change, which are the overarching guiding documents identifying needs, priorities, and means of implementation for climate action. Dedicated adaptation schemes such as the National Adaptation Fund on Climate Change have also been launched. Several projects for adaptation in agriculture, water, coastal sectors, etc., are currently underway. India has also launched the Global Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure at the UN Climate Summit in 2019 to promote the resilience of new and existing infrastructure systems to climate and disaster risks, thereby ensuring sustainable development. In today's world, it's not only a new challenge that humanity is facing with the pandemic, but if there is one bright light, one positive thing that comes out of this entire period of complete despair that has surrounded the mind and the entire world, mental frames, and the livelihood of millions of people all over the world. I think that bright spot is that due to the closing down of the manufacturing companies, the industries, the non-functioning of the airline industry, no cars and no construction, basically life coming to a standstill, kind of pushed the reset button. Definitely we did not want the reset button to be pushed in this manner, but however, nature has its own ways which are inexplicable. We do not know why this happened and how we are going to deal with it in the long run, whether a vaccine is going to happen very soon or not. But what we know that yes, somehow at the end of the day, nature seemed to have pressed the reset button, and pollution levels, PM 2.5, PM10, suspended particles, what we are seeing worldwide in the air quality index, they are much better than what they used to be. And the challenge lies in controlling or maintaining the AQI closer to what we see now, and not how we left it before the pandemic stopped or brought the entire world to a screeching halt. So I think that once life will definitely get back to normalcy, there's no question about it. But once we restart and get back into our normal lives, we definitely would want the targets of pollution control, the targets that we've set for ourselves to reverse global warming, to ensure that whatever has been discussed in the Paris Agreement are fulfilled to the best of every country's abilities. That endeavor continues with more perseverance, with more resolute, and definitely more spirited, concerted, harmonious efforts from all the countries. I wish all the very best to all the South Asian countries. I would wish all the very best to I would like to wish all the very best for the Global Center of Adaptation, and I am sure that the South Asia Regional Office that is getting virtually launched 8th of September is definitely going to open up new skies where climate change would be discussed in a more concerted manner, and we are all going to have a place, have an office, have one more center where we can get closer to the challenges of climate change, and by getting closer, get to know it better, and therefore know what we exactly need to do, how responsible and sensitive we need to be to ensure that this climate change do not change our homeland, and that is planet Earth. So once again, I wish you all the very best. My heartiest congratulations on this new beginning, and I'm very sure this new beginning is going to be the end of several mistakes that we have done in terms of how we have handled, the environment, how we have handled or kind of been careless about climate change challenges, how we have been a little carefree and therefore careless about handling pollution around us, the air that we breathe in, and I'm very sure we are all going to see a better future lying ahead of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from India. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may we now invite His Excellency Dr. Hussein Rashid Hassan, Minister, Ministry of Environment of Maldives, to kindly deliver his speech.
Prime Minister Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, former Secretary General of the UN, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, distinguished ministers, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. It is a great honor to join this inauguration event of the Global Center on Adaptation in South Asia. This year has been a year of hardship for all of us. With the extensive global measures to cope with the current pandemic, we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. However, the effect of climate change is much worse than the current pandemic. The science is very clear. The world's climate system is changing exponentially and accelerating beyond expectations. Increasing frequency and magnitude of extreme events, warming and acidification of oceans, melting of polar ice caps and glaciers, and sea level rise, among other things, is causing serious, costly and irreversible impacts to all of us. Climate change is a disproportionate burden on developing world, especially SEEDs and the low-lying coral atoll nations such as the Maldives. We are indeed the front-line states, the main victims, and are living a climate emergency. Ironically, our contribution to climate change is negligible, yet we are bearing the brunt of the impacts and we have the least capacity to adapt. While we are addressing adaptation and enhancing resilience of our people, we have to consider that we do not always need to reinvent the wheel. Our experiences, the expertise, existing local knowledge, and cooperation can be leveraged to deliver effective solutions and achieve results. Climate change is a planet-wide challenge. No single country or region may hope to tackle the problem alone. This is why international cooperation and partnerships with organizations such as Global Center on Adaptation become extremely important. So, to secure our common future and to transform our economies and societies for the better. Regional partnerships are an important platform to build awareness and strengthen climate change leadership by engaging governments, private sector, regional institutions, civil societies, and business leaders to boost climate action. This is consistent with the spirit of the Paris Agreement and the Sustainable Development Goals. Let us work together to secure our common future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister from Maldives. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may I now call upon His Excellency Mr. Shakti Bahadur Basnet, Minister, Ministry of Forest and Environment of Nepal, to kindly deliver his speech.
Excellency Mohammad Sahabuddin, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Good afternoon and namaskar. At this outset, I would like to congratulate the people and the government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh for taking this auspicious initiative of establishing Global Center on Adaptation in your beautiful country, Bangladesh. I do believe that this center will be a hub of excellence for generating new knowledge and innovation on climate change adaptation in the South Asia region and contribute to the planet as well through climate actions. Your Excellency, in the recent days, unprecedented weather events exacerbated a number of landslides, floods, and inundation, and they contributed to increased risk and vulnerabilities on natural and human systems in the region. The intrusion of COVID-19 pandemic has put additional pressure on our pathways to the sustainable and climate resilient development. South Asian countries have higher rate of climate vulnerability compared to the rest of the world due to several direct and underlying factors, including but are not limited to high dependence on natural systems, agro-based economy, difficult geographic trends, extreme poverty, inequality, and the stage of the economic development. I would like to draw attention of these reasons to the pertinent climate change issues of the mountains as well as the lowlands and the oceans in a holistic way, since they are connected through biophysical, socio-cultural and economic systems, including the networks of river basins and watersheds across the region. Your Excellency, on this auspicious occasion, let me share some initiatives taken by the government of Nepal on climate policies and institutional measures. Based on the decade experience of the National Adaptation Program of Action, we have developed National Climate Change Policy 2019 and Local Adaptation Plan for Action Framework 2019, with the twin objectives of implementing adaptation actions and integrating them into local planning process. We are at the concluding stage of enhanced nationally determined contributions to reach closer to the targets set by the Paris Agreement. We are developing an inclusive, ecosystem-based, sustainable development-oriented and gender-responsive national adaptation plan, which will become a game-changer strategy in climate change adaptation in Nepal. We have introduced climate change budget code in the national budgetary system, which tracks climate change relevant expenditures. Building on this learning, we are planning to coordinate for multiple financial resources for implementing sustainable climate change adaptation and mitigation measures, also contributing to sustainable development. I hope the learning of these initiatives could be very instrumental to this region. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at the end, I, on behalf of the government of Nepal, wish every success to GCA and express my commitment to working together for regional and global initiatives towards building a climate resilient world. I thank the government of Bangladesh for hosting this important event and inviting us to share our views. I do appreciate once again this initiative. Thank you all.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from Nepal. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may we now call upon His Excellency Mr. Malik Amin Aslam, Federal Minister and Special Envoy for Climate Change of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, to kindly deliver his speech.
Pakistan would like to welcome the setting up of the regional hub for the Global Adaptation Center in Dhaka, Bangladesh. We feel that this whole region is seriously impacted by climate change, and we have a range of impacts which are going across the region and are shared by the region also. They range from the melting of glaciers in the Himalayan region in the north, and then come down to the slow onset events of super floods that go all across the region, because there are very large river basins in this whole region which are fed by these glaciers. And then in the south we have the sea level rise occurring and as well as cyclonic activity hitting the coastal belt. And on top of that we have the monsoon activity, which has taken a big shift in terms of both spatial as well as temporal shift across the region. All of this is creating a lot of unpredictability based on climatic changes in the region, And this is also impacting a huge population. So it's not just the impacts, but the population that resides in this region is 1.5 billion people. And all of these people are affected by these impacts. And that creates the high vulnerability to climate change. So the climate change is a clear and present danger for the whole region. We have to get together, we have to have regional cooperation, and we have to share our information for early warning systems in this whole region. So I think for all of this, it is very important that there is a regional hub, and so we would like to welcome this regional hub in Bangladesh, and we hope that it can act as a center for minimizing the impacts for the people in this whole region and also mitigating climate change in this whole region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister from Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, Sri Lankan government has informed that, as per the instruction of the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the entire Environment Ministry is very busy with the issue of preventing an oil spill and damage to the environment. In such a difficult situation, they regretted for their inability to participate, but wished a grand success of this inaugural ceremony of GCA Bangladesh.
Distinguished dignitaries, now would like to invite His Excellency Mr. Shahabuddin Ahmed, Minister, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of Bangladesh, to kindly deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Prime Minister of People's Republic of Bangladesh, His Excellency Mr. Mark Rutte, Prime Minister of Netherlands, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, President of Global Center on Adaptation and ex-Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Patrick B. Barkhujan, Distinguished Chief Executive Officer, GCA, Honorable Minister, distinguished colleagues from home and abroad. I feel honored and privileged to share my thoughts on the aim of integration of the Global Center on Adaptation GCA Regional Office in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Distinguished guests, under the Paris Agreement, we are planning to significantly increase mitigation ambition, enhance resilience through adaptation action, and enhancing financial flows by developed countries to support those actions. Adaptation provides more localized benefits, which is considered a necessity for one of the most climate vulnerable countries like Bangladesh and other vulnerable developing countries. Ladies and gentlemen, at present, we are finalizing our update BCC SAP, formulating the National Adaptation Plan, and also working on the review and update of our national determined contribution to this. And I want to mention, under the dynamic leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh government took proactive action back in 2009 through unveiling Bangladesh climate change strategy and action plan and establishing a dedicated Bangladesh climate change trust fund to provide financial resources to implement adaptation action in the ground. So far, the government of Bangladesh has been allocated about $443 million to Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund from our own resources since the fiscal year 2009-2010. Distinguished colleagues, we are honored to, as Global Center on Adaptation, Dhaka Regional Office is going to be inaugurated today. We consider it as a very prudent decision by Global Commission on Adaptation, as Bangladesh is considered as the natural laboratory of adaptation. I hope through the GCA Dhaka Regional Office, we can work unitedly with regional countries to share our rich age-old survival and coping techniques and unitedly enhance our resilience for the benefit of our common people. As the Minister of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, I want to assure to extend all kinds of support from our end to the GCA Regional Office. Finally, I would like to convey my deep respect and sincere thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte, Honorable Secretary General, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, Mr. Patrick, CEO of GCA, distinguished minister, for their gracious presence. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Honorable Environment Minister from Bangladesh. Ladies and gentlemen, now we'd like to invite His Excellency Dr. A.K. Abdul Momen, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh and member of the board of GCA, to kindly deliver his speech.
Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, Honorable Chair, Global Adaptation Center, Honorable Ministers, and other distinguished guests and dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Excellencies, first of all, I would like to pay my deepest homage to our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who had realized the adverse impacts of climate change long ago and called for greater international cooperation to face the natural calamity in his very first speech at the United Nations in 1974. Cause of climate change is global, so naturally the solution requires a global initiative. Today's inauguration of the GCA's South Asian Regional Office in Dhaka is an important part of that collective initiative. However, the origin of this happy occasion of today goes back to Dhaka meeting of the Global Commission on Adaptation, organized by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in July 2019, where our Honorable Prime Minister invited the GC Chair, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, to establish GCA Regional Office for South Asia in Dhaka, which ultimately culminated in today's inauguration. For that, I wholeheartedly thank His Excellency Ban Ki-moon and the entire GCA team for today's success. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the whole planet is at risk, but according to Global Climate Risk Index, particularly South Asia is the most vulnerable region associated with climate change-related risks and threats. Together with the countries of this region, GCA Bangladesh office will promote locally developed nature-based sustainable solutions in innovative adaptation measures. We'll create a center of excellence not only for the regional countries but also for the regions of the world by sharing our best practices. Let me tell you one of our best practices. In 1970, during a devastating cyclone, almost half a million people perished. But due to our cyclone and disaster preparedness programs, in 2009, although we faced similar devastating cyclone and tidal waves, only 190 people died. This is not a miracle, but achieved through sustained effort and commitment. GCA Dhaka will be a milestone for international partnership, as after the devastation of COVID-19 pandemic, we'll build back our climate resilience much better by making transition to a green economy and investing in more decarbonization of the production methods and consumption. But this requires a strong global commitment and effort. Bangladesh is ready to share her experience and best practices regarding adaptation and disaster management. We have already formulated 82-year-long Delta Plan 2100, which is a living test case for all the deltas of the world. During the establishment of GCA's South Asian Regional Office in Dhaka, Ministry of Foreign Affairs was closely associated with other stakeholders, including GCA headquarters, and it continued to do so in future. We hope to receive necessary support from the international development partners in our efforts, as it is very easy to achieve and demonstrate climate resilient success in this region. I wish a very effective and successful operation of the GCA South Asian Regional Office in Dhaka. Thank you all. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Foreign Minister of Bangladesh. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may we now request His Excellency Mr. A.H.M. Mustafa Kamal, the Finance Minister of Bangladesh, to kindly deliver his speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Our Excellency Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Prime Minister, Government of the People of Bangladesh. His Excellency Mr. Mark Dace, Prime Minister of the Netherlands. His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, President of the Global Center on Adaptation, and the former Secretary General of the United Nations, a very, very popular face in our country. Honorable Ministers of Bangladesh and the neighboring countries, distinguished guests, friends from the media, a very good afternoon to you all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I proceed, I humbly express my gratitude to our Honorable Prime Minister, the Mother of Humanity, Our Excellency Sheikh Hasina, for assuming our responsibility, the CBF's presidency for the second term. We strongly believe under her pragmatic leadership, CBF will be able to unite the whole world community for playing an effective role for the cause to save humanity, human civilization, and our beautiful planet. It is indeed a historic day for all of us, particularly all the citizens of Bangladesh. As you are going to inaugurate the Global Center on Adaptation, Bangladesh office in Dhaka today, you may recall the day, 9th of July 2019, as on that day, Honorable Prime Minister, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, in her speech delivered in the GCA meeting, expressed her deep desire and intent to establish this office in Dhaka to serve as a regional center for the South Asia. Thank God, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's dream is going to be fulfilled today with the inauguration of this office. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the government of Bangladesh takes the issue of climate change very seriously, which is now universally accepted as a global challenge and thus requiring a global coordinated action and cooperation. That is why we sincerely request the whole world community to come forward with their sincere efforts and endeavors to fight the climate change impairment and other related issues. Before I conclude, I humbly thank Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, for her firm commitment to establish this office. I sincerely express my heartfelt gratitude to global leaders and friends for providing their support in this regard. I especially thank the government of the Netherlands for extending its all-out support in establishing this office. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. May God bless us all. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangabandhu, Bangladesh Children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Finance Minister of Bangladesh. Distinguished guests, we now have the honor to request His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, 8th Secretary General of the United Nations and Chair of the Board of GCA, to kindly deliver his speech on this occasion.
Your Excellency Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, Dr. Patrick Verkoyen, CEO of GCA, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to join you today. I'd like to thank Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina for kindly hosting this event, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. The launch of the Global Center on Adaptation Regional Office for South Asia in Bangladesh is a start of a new era at a critical time. This is what we had discussed during my visit last year in Dhaka. The pandemic has shown us as individuals and communities that we have a choice in how we respond to global threats. For the greater good, we can accept restrictions on how we live, or we can respond selfishly, seeking only what is right for us rather than the collective good of humanity. These choices will continue to be important once COVID-19 is tamed, because we should be clear. Because what should be clear is that other threats, most notably our ongoing climate emergency, have not gone away during the pandemic. His Holiness Pope Francis, praying in a deserted St. Peter's Square in March of this year, said, I quote, "Nor did we listen to the cry of poor or of our ailing planet. We carried on regardless, thinking we would stay healthy in a world that was sick," unquote. As government prepare to deal with the economic fallout from COVID-19, I urge them to put climate adaptation at the heart of their recovery plans. To do anything less would be to succumb to a crisis that will eventually have far more devastating consequences for humanity than COVID-19. After 5 years since the Paris Climate Change Agreement was adopted, action to combat climate change remains insufficient in both scale and pace. The evidence for this is clear. The World Meteorological Organization, WMO, noted that 2018 was the fourth warmest year on record, and that the 20 warmest years have all occurred in the past 22 years. And the UN Environmental Emissions Gap Report notes that current climate targets are insufficient to keep global temperatures in line with the goals of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, and would lead to global warmings of about 3 degrees by 2100. Allow me to be very blunt. Dhaka and many more cities like it may simply cease to exist in a 3-degree world. The 28th report from the IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, stresses that the difference between keeping global temperatures at 1.5 Celsius versus reaching 2 degrees Celsius would have massive impact, including increased incidence of droughts, forest fires, floods, and storms, extreme weather patterns. Events, as we all know, are already becoming the norm, not the exception. The melting of glaciers in the Himalaya, the Karakoram, and the Hindu Kush will impact the lives of millions of peoples across Pakistan, India, Bhutan, Bangladesh, and beyond. Erratic weather patterns, including increased droughts, will harm agriculture, not least in Afghanistan, but also in Nepal and Sri Lanka. According to the IPCC, if sea levels were to rise by just 1 meter, then 17% of Bangladesh would be underwater by 2050. It is an existential threat to nations like Maldives. If this is just in a 2-degree world, what then of 3 or 4 degrees? While our primary goals must always be reining greenhouse gas emissions and find a sustainable solution to climate change, we cannot ignore the fact that decades of inaction and indifference have left far too many already exposed and vulnerable. But the good news is all over the world, countries are rising to this challenge and doing everything they can within their power to protect their citizens. But we need greater collaboration. The climate emergency is an all of society problems affecting everyone on the planet and must be dealt with through all of society approach, with the collaboration between governments, from the private sector, and from partners. Because the truth is that the world needs a complete pivot and an overhaul in how we do development. There has to be a revolution in the way we perceive climate risk, how we price that risk, and how we make it visible. There also has to be a revolution in the way we actually plan our cities, our infrastructure, our private investment. Climate change must be central to this, with every decision affecting climate needs and realities. And the same applies for adaptation. Adaptation is just one word, but it encompasses so much. It means planting drought-resistant crops and trees along riverbanks, restoring mangrove forests, which globally already prevent more than $80 billion in damages and protect 18 million people from coastal flooding, coastal erosion. Adaptation also means reacting to reduce the deadly impacts of rising temperatures. In 2010, a heat wave in India killed more than 1,300 people in Ahmedabad. An action plan was set up to train health workers, to distribute water, to paint roofs white to reflect the heat. A similar heat wave in 2015 in India claimed just 7 lives. Since then, 30 other Indian cities have adopted the same plan. Another way, adaptation is conserving water and stabilizing soil, upgrading and flood-proofing rural roads. The results can be measured not just in the property and livelihoods protected, but in the number of lives that are saved. Cyclones are a fact of life in Bangladesh and across South Asia. Death tolls have historically been heavy. Yet when extreme severe cyclone Amphan hit this year, there were less than 100 deaths across India and Bangladesh. Any death, even a single death, is hugely regrettable. And we send our sincere condolences and sympathies to all the families of those who lost their lives. But we must also be grateful that thanks to more accurate weather forecasting, community-based early warning systems, and stronger shelters, 2.4 million people were moved to safety before it struck. And in a matter of days, Bangladesh prepared almost 10,500 additional shelters on top of the 4,000 already in existence to accommodate those being evacuated with the measure of social distancing. The country's early warning system and well-rehearsed evacuation drills have saved hundreds and thousands of lives over the years. Bangladesh is a striking example of how vulnerable communities can be the most innovative in adaptation to climate change. Madam Prime Minister, you may not know how many times, how often I cite the successful events of adaptation, which has saved your countries and countries' people in everywhere around the world. They now know that Bangladesh is the best example, successful case. That is why we decided to establish Southeast Asian Regional Office in Dhaka. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, now I hope through the Global Center on Adaptation, hosted by Bangladesh, working with other offices in Rotterdam, Beijing, and shortly Abidjan, Africa, the valuable lessons Bangladesh has learned will be shared across the whole region and rest of the world. Thank you, Madam Prime Minister, for your steadfast support of the mission of the Global Center on Adaptation. Programs like the planting of 10 million trees this year to mark the 100th birthday anniversary of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Father of the Nation, are a testament to your commitment to protecting the environment. South-South, North-South, South-North, we can only adapt to our new climate reality by working together. Because if we do not, I believe we are at risk of climate apartheid, where the wealthy pay to escape the heat, hunger, and conflict, and rest of the world is left to suffer. We need to and can equip people to deal with the changes that are already with us. Across the world, COVID-19 is adding a huge strain to governments. At this time, international collaboration is vital. Countries can learn from successes around the world and support each other. It is only by pulling together that we will emerge stronger and more resilient. There is no time to waste, because while the rest of the world debates climate change, for South Asia, adapting to a warmer, more violent, less predictable climate is a matter of absolute survival. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let us work together to make this world much healthier, safer, and more prosperous for all. Thank you. Onek Donobat.
Thank you so much, Excellency Ban Ki-moon, for your thoughtful enlightenment. It is quite alluring to hear from a personality like you. Thank you so much once again. Ladies and gentlemen, may we now request His Excellency Mark Rutte, Honorable Prime Minister of the Netherlands, to kindly deliver his address on this occasion.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great shame that today's grand opening couldn't be a physical event. But I'm still delighted that we are able to celebrate this crucial milestone online. I'd like to thank our virtual participants, including Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and Ban Ki-moon, for being here today. And I want to congratulate Bangladesh on the opening of the regional GCA office in Dhaka, the first in South Asia. It's a clear sign of Bangladesh's leadership on climate change adaptation. In that respect, I also applaud Bangladesh on chairing the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which will further increase the impact of the regional office. And I look forward to seeing the country grow its regional and global leadership on climate adaptation even more. Because this is the kind of leadership we need. The Netherlands is pleased to have Bangladesh as an ally. We stand shoulder to shoulder. Two Delta countries on the front line of the battle to deal with the effects of climate change. Devastating effects like rising sea levels, heavier rains and more cyclones, as well as droughts and salinization. Our countries are only too aware of the importance of climate adaptation. As well as reducing our carbon footprint, it's the perfect avenue for investment and innovation. If we invest in adaptation now, we'll be better prepared to climate change down the line. And yes, it will cost money. But the long-term benefit will far outweigh the short-term costs. Investments in climate-resilient agriculture, green cities and infrastructure, and adaptive water management will not only pay for themselves, they will also protect human lives and the natural environment. We can already see that in practice. On the 20th of May, Bangladesh was hit by a cyclone. Early warning systems, cyclone shelters, alert citizens and effective measures all help minimize the impact. Of course, crops were destroyed and was less severe than in the past. And people were able to reopen their businesses soon after the storm had died down. An example of true resilience, which will only be enhanced by Bangladesh's ambitious Delta Plan 2100. All this shows that we need to stick to this path, especially now, in this time of coronavirus. It's certainly a major crisis, but it also offers us a unique opportunity. Now is the time to make the changes we need to build a climate-resilient world, to increase prosperity and improve public health, but also to build back better, fostering green and inclusive recovery towards the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. I hope we can seize this momentum. I hope we can take new steps to prepare the world better for the effects of climate change. And I hope that the online climate adaptation summit in January, which the Netherlands is hosting, will boost those efforts. Over the course of 24 hours, online anchoring events will be taking place around the world, including in Dhaka. And I know that we'll be able to count on Bangladesh's leadership, cooperation and commitment, even in this time of crisis. I look forward to seeing you then.
Thank you so much, Excellency Ruud, for expressing your learning by doing process and also talking about Bangladesh's resilience in adopting climate change efforts. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we now have the honor to request Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina, the Honorable Prime Minister of the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, to kindly deliver her speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Honorable Prime Minister of Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte, His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, President of GCA, Honorable Ministers, guests from different countries, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good afternoon. It's in Bangladesh. I am very pleased to attend the virtual inauguration of Global Center on Adaptation, GCA, Bangladesh Regional Office amid the COVID-19 pandemic. At the outset, I would like to thank His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the President of the Global Center on Adaptation, for his cooperation in establishing the GCA Bangladesh Regional Office. I believe this is a historic moment for combating climate change in South Asia through adaptation. I recall our father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who first introduced massive afforestation program and construction of cyclone shelters about 45 years ago. South Asia is the most vulnerable region to climate-induced natural disasters like cyclone, flood, tidal surge, drought, glacial lake outburst flood, landslides, avalanches, etc. Even a 1.5 degree Celsius rise of temperature will have severe consequences for Bangladesh and the region. We also must not forget that vulnerability of the children, women, elderly people, and people with special needs against disasters. Bangladesh remains committed to implementing the Paris Agreement and adopting all the measures to prevent rise of temperature from the emission of greenhouse gases and other environmental degradations. My government has undertaken various mitigation and adaptation programs under Bangladesh Climate Change Strategy and Action Plan formulated in 2009 to offset climate change impacts. We have established Bangladesh Climate Change Trust Fund in 2009 and so far allocated $430 million from our own resources to implement the action plan. But later on, we have received some support from different countries and organizations. I thank all of them. The government has also been spending about 1% of our GDP equivalent to $2 billion per year since 2010 for adaptation purposes. The government has formulated a 100-year plan called Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100 as a long-term plan to face the challenges of climate change and natural disasters. We build up our country a safe place for our future generation. And besides that, we have also, through research, now we are going for crops which will be salinity resistance crops, drought resistance crops, and water submerged resistance crops. Through research, we have achieved a lot, but we are doing our research so that our people, at least they should be safe for their food security. And it is not only for Bangladesh, we also want to share our experience with all our neighboring countries and other countries too. But our research, we are very successful. Distinguished guests, in the past decade alone, nearly 700 million people, half of the region's population, have been affected by climate-related disasters. Before people can recover from one disaster caused by natural hazards, another one strikes, reversing any progress made. To end this cyclone, South Asia needs to build greater resilience. It is heartening to note that the GCA Bangladesh office will facilitate, support and develop on-the-ground action in South Asia to enhance adaptation and climate resilience. I hope this regional office will share best adaptation practices of Bangladesh as well as other countries and exchange practices within the region. It will serve as a center of excellence and a solution broker for adaptation measures in the region. It is our expectation that GCA Dhaka office would also support us during the chairmanship of Bangladesh to Climate Vulnerable Forum, CBF, and Vulnerable 20, two climate-based important international bodies under the UNFCCC CCC process during next 2 years. I would also like to urge GCA to explore the opportunity of supporting the Delta coalition on a long-term basis. Distinguished guests, Bangladesh is a unique example of climate vulnerability and resilience. People here have time and again showed their resilience against natural or man-made disasters. Yet there remain a lot of things to be changed. I think other countries in the region also have similar experiences and some good practices on adaptive measures. I believe together we can safeguard and build a better future for all of us. Because of our geographical situation in Bangladesh and because it's a delta, we have to live with nature and natural disaster, but we have to adapt how to save our people's life and their habitation. And we are trying our best to do that. As the climate change is a global affair, I would like to call upon the countries to enhance their nationally determined contributions by December the 31st this year in tackling the manage as well as execute the 2015 Paris Agreement. I thank you all. Special thanks to former Secretary General and President of Global Center on Adaptation, His Excellency Ban Ki-moon, for his kind words, and also our Prime Minister Mark Rutte, always very supportive to Bangladesh, and special thanks to the Mr. Patrick B. Barkhuizen, Chief Executive Officer, Global Center on Adaptation, Rotterdam, Netherlands. And also I thank all the organizers, because of this, they organized very, nicely this program. And we will work together, we will fight together, we will achieve together. Thank you very much. With these few words, I declare the Global Center on Adaptation Bangladesh Regional Office open. Thank you all again. Khuda Hafiz, Jai Bangla, Jai Bangladesh. May Bangladesh live forever.
Thank you very much, Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, for your thoughtful speech and for sharing of experiential knowledge for combating climate change in South Asia. Now, Honorable Prime Minister and His Excellency Mr. Ban Ki-moon are requested to kindly press a button to formally open the GCA Bangladesh.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this inaugural program. We gratefully thank you all for a kind presence. Dear audience, our next program is Press Briefing, hosted by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change of Bangladesh.